Good evening. Welcome. I'm Rose, a bookseller at Literati Bookstore. We're pleased to welcome Zilka Joseph to our At Home with Literati series in support of her recent collection, Sparrows and Dust. She'll be joined by Robert Fanning and John Freeman. Just a quick webinar overview for our attendees. The chat is closed, but you may want to keep the chat window open during the event, as I will be dropping links to purchase Sparrows and Dust from Literati throughout the event. You can also use the Q&A feature on your toolbar to submit questions at any time, and I will ask a selection at the conclusion of their conversation. A reminder, you can also shop for more books at literatibookstore.com for curbside pickup if you live in Southeast Michigan, or to have shipped to your home anywhere in the United States. In lieu of a book purchase, we'd also ask that you consider a $5 donation to sustain our virtual programming. Whether you'd like to think of it as this week, this month's, or this year's subscription to our programming, you can make donations at literatibookstore.com/donation. Otherwise, we simply thank you for your attendance this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where in the world you may be joining us. Now allow me to introduce tonight's author and our moderators. Zilka Joseph was nominated twice for a Pushcart and for Best of the Net. Her work has appeared in Poetry, Poetry Daily, The Writer's Chronicle, Frontier Poetry, Kenyon Review, Online, MQR, Asia Literary Review, Review Americana, and in anthologies such as Cheers to Muses, work by Asian American women, Respect, an anthology of Detroit music poetry, 101 poems for the Jewish poems for the third millennium, and the Kali Project. Her chapbooks Lands I Live In and What Dread were nominated for a PEN America and Pushcart Award, respectively. Sharp Blue Search of Flame, her book of poems published by Wayne State University Press, was a finalist for the Forward Indies Book Award. Her new chapbook, Sparrows and Dust, was published in March 2021. She was awarded a Zell Fellowship and the Elsie Choi Lee Scholarship from the University of Michigan. She teaches creative writing and is an editor and manuscript coach. She can be found at www.zilkajoseph.com. Robert Fanning is the author of 6 poetry collections, including 4 full-length collections, Severance, Our Sudden Museum, American Prophet, The Seed Thieves, as well as 2 chapbooks, Sheet Music and Old Bright Wheel. His poems have appeared in Poetry, Plowshares, Shenandoah, Gulf Coast, Thrush, Waxwing, The Atlanta Review, and many other journals. A graduate of the University of Michigan and Sarah Lawrence College, he is a professor of creative writing at Central Michigan University. He is also a founder and facilitator of the Wellspring Literary Series and the founder and director of Penn Insula Poetry, a site for Michigan poets. He lives with his wife, sculptor Denise Whitebread Fanning, and their 2 children. John Freeman is the author of the book Fight Songs. He has appeared in many journals, including Southward, The Moth, Passages North, Hippocampus, Southwest Review, The Poetry Review. His poetry collection, Poolside at the Dearborn Inn, is forthcoming from Ramp R Press in 2022. He currently serves as writer-in-residence with the Inside Out Literary Arts Detroit and teaches at Oakland University. Again, welcome to everybody and have a great event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I think we decided I'm going to go first. We're going to end with Zilka, who is our special headliner tonight. And I just want to begin by thanking Rose and Literati Bookstore. I wish we could be in Ann Arbor with you all tonight. And this is an incredible honor for me to read with John and Zilka, both of which who I think owe me about an hour of my life back because their poems have taken so many of my breaths away. Sorry, that sounded like a bad pickup line, but it's true. They are amazing. I can't wait for you to hear them. So so thanks everybody for being here. It's such an honor to be here. I'm going to read all new work. I have some books, as you just heard, but these are all new poems, and I'm going to actually start with a poem that's really new and an ill-advised thing to start with a poem that's only days old. But my son Gabriel and I have been working our way through the catalog of the director Andrei Tarkovsky, this amazing Russian film director who we love. And this poem I'm starting with, I suppose, is an apt beginning. It's called Self-Portrait as an Opening Scene. And this opening scene of this movie is one of my favorites. Anyway, I won't tell you about it. I'll just read the poem. Self-Portrait as an Opening Scene. Oh, the film is The Sacrifice from 1986. Old man, why carry a thin dead tree to the sea's edge, asking the boy with the wounded throat to plant it, as if a later blossom might, as if root, as if the little man is you as a boy dragging his toy rope, lasso or noose. Cast off, actor, the past you ask to resurrect your futures mute. Too late in the world for spring, soon the last war will whistle over you. The end will come, the end you've beckoned with nothing but talk. Somewhere out across the sea, a fallen bomb you dream as thunder. Down the long road that splits the frame, the messenger arrives on a bike. Who knows you as both boy and man, speaking from the middle of your life. You shouldn't grieve so much, he cautions. You shouldn't yearn so for something. Weaving dreamy, infinite loops, he circles you both on the grass, then stops, rubbing his head, chasing ideas of eternal recurrence. All my life, he says, going around waiting for something, as if I were waiting in a railway station. Old man, why not listen to either? This wandering carrier of maps you were, or the mute boy who, as you talk, ties one end of his rope to a low branch, the other to the bike's back wheel for a laugh. As if to say, stop turning, as if to say, stay. In the beginning was the word, the messenger shouts, riding away. But you are mute, mute as a fish. You don't hear him, already off screen. You're walking toward your wooden house with burning hands. The final scene. Somewhere out across the sea, a blooming war. A war you dream as storm. A storm you dream as blossom. Pink flames raining in the breeze. So, thanks for that. Definitely check out that film and every film by Tarkovsky. He's the most poetic director there is. They're like watching poems unfold. This next poem is, I have been starting to write some poems kind of inspired by places in Michigan. And last summer, my family and I went up to near Mackinac Bridge, and we were picking up rocks and shells, and just was stunned at standing on this beach with, shells that are millions of years old. And it inspired this poem, and it's called Inarticulata. Squinting southward down the shore a blink ago, I watched my toddler son wobble at the brink of a foot-deep hole in cratered sand, bright blue shovel in his tiny hands. An hour of castles and moats, and now he's waist high, pensive, eyeing the passing boats, his baby sister in tow. I blink again, look west and shield my eyes. My grown son's 100 pages deep in an old novel. My daughter, now tall as my wife, sings as she cartwheels up the beach. At our feet, the shadows lengthen imperceptibly. Now it's autumn. We're combing stones along the coast at Headland's Dark Sky Park, sifting for 400 million year old fossils, etchings left by glaciers in retreat. We bend low as we look, as if to hear the ages speak, and they do. Here's a relic of a mollusk valve, crenellated inarticulata, little wing of something long flown. Here's one like a Zen eye looking up, an open enso pressed onto a pebble. Look at this one, shadow of a curved spine, floating for eons on a stone, a tiny cuticle of bone, ancient ultrasound of someone no one's ever known. They're gone when I turn to look, my family shrinking far down shore as they bend to shells and stones. Behind me already, a sundown wind shivers the pines. I don't need to look to see the gone world here. The season of erasure nears. Soon the shore will be a slash of white, the lake a swath of black inseparable from sky. Even now, the wind bears news of another world breaking into being beyond, of winter's towering, gale-thrown waves, shouldering massive sheets of jagged crystal, a stacked and aching wall of shattered cathedrals along the beach. May this then be prayer before the muted hour of ruin and ice, before the rise of the desolate era. May this be stone in your hand. May this speak of the depths of love, of how I held them all as close as I could and for as long, of how we played and breathed in every summer's golden going light, of how we stood together here where once there was a sea. Thanks for listening. I have 4 more poems. So tonight, the moon is waning crescent. I looked it up. It's at about 29.3% from Mount Pleasant. And the researcher and psychologist Gabor Mate said, what we call the personality is often a jumble of genuine traits and adopted coping styles that do not reflect our true self at all, but the loss of it. In that spirit, here's a poem about growing up, or rather shrinking. And this poem will be featured next month in an edition of a great journal out of Maine called Off the Coast. It's called Little Moon Hero. Little moon hero, how you learned, how you flew moon big through the house in your little black cape, your bright face taped on. How you learned floating through that dark to catch and hold the broken light and cast it forward, to keep your back to the world. Little moon hero, how you learned, how each night your little hands would swing their little hammer at bedtime, knocking the bright nail of the sun into the sea. And how every waking day you'd fix the night back onto your face. Little moon hero, how you learned the years, your cape and mask grown too small, how you learned to dream, your hands pressed hard against the sky, trembling to stop the orbit, to dream the dust of your dead seas and valleys still invisible. How you learned to lean into the light, to disappear, to slip beneath the daily horizon, going down into adolescence, down into adulthood, down into the dank shed of yourself, night after night, sawing and sanding rails and rungs to hammer your way back up to the sky. How you learned the making and unmaking, how you ground your chalky bones to fit the whole. Little moon, how you learned ellipse and turn, libration and apogee, tipping your axis to still each wobble, nightly clenching the ripped white hem of the sea's black blanket over your face. Little one, little zero, how you wanted to save them all from falling, to save them from seeing you whole. Thanks, everyone. This poem is in the current issue of Gulf Coast Journal, a journal that I love, and it was Vivi Francis, a poet from Detroit, who we all love, invited me to submit this poem. And the section of the journal is called Origin Stories, which typically feature mythological beginnings or superheroes. And this is a different take on that origin story. And this is called Used to Be a Sweet Boy. The shooter running across the playground, his bouncing curls, his diaper peeking over his blue jeans. The shooter's long eyelashes. The shooter pushed on the swing, the warmth of his father's hand, big as his back. The shooter's girlish delight. The shooter laughing down the bright orange slide, his mother waving from the park bench. The shooter in the sandbox watching a pack of kids run past. The shooter kicking stones. The shooter opening his lunchbox. The shooter drawing a portrait in art class. The shooter's soft cheek in the glow of his bedside lamp, listening to his mother's moans on the other side of the wall, her ribs kicked in. The shooter hearing each dull crush. The shooter's chin on his soft hands. The shooter trying to read. The shooter's finger pulling the curtain aside to look at the moon. The shooter behind the wheel of his first car. The shooter smiling at the cashier, her shiny red lipstick. The shooter on break, standing in the alley behind the dollar store, pressing his back to the sun-warmed bricks. The shooter staring at the red swipe of a half-drawn circle around the bright A at the top of his essay. The shooter alone in the busy cafeteria. The shooter driving home. Hair on the shooter's arm riffled by a breeze. The shooter's black coat on its hanger. The shooter's face screen lit. The shooter licking an envelope. The shooter closing a book. The shooter pulling a blanket up to his chin. Sleep parting the shooter's lips. The shooter's eyes rolling beneath thin lids. Tomorrow's active shooter, pregnant with dream. Thank you. I'm going to close, especially after that poem. I'm going to close with a couple poems about love. It's spring, you know? So this one, I was just thinking about the phrase love between us, and just how love is something that needs to be tended to and communicated. And it's difficult to hold on to. This is called All We Are Given, We Cannot Hold. Whirling axis, spine of a spinning top. Love between us, all maybe and blush. Night we press against us, secret we caress, word we write in steam, we breathe on glass. What we let fly from our fingers, love between us. String we find to weave a world, valleys of lavender spilling for miles. All the stars we can name, lemon and willow, love between us. A riffle of yellow, shadow of sheets on the line. Mast and sail, the days adrift, the summer all billow and cream. Endless yes, love between us and passing. Droop of a flush pink bloom at noon. Love between us, a dappled garden shade, gate of vines. A house of ours and only weave the key. Love between us, the day-long rain. Love between us, glance and veil, the gauzy sleeve of evening giving way. Gray mare in the mist, acres of breeze and beach grass. Love between us, chasm and sea. Flicker or blaze, weather of our making. Wild heaven going, love between us. All the windfall apples and the sweet crush of dusk. Love between us, the unfleshed light. Night, a book we want to open. Love between us, the story we writhe inside. Box of letters in a dusty attic. The sky's ancient fires we extinguish. Each day we don't kiss. Static and stir, a spark, love between us. The silver arc we make across the stark and vast. Given one life to remember, love between us. One lost language we're given to taste. Each fading sentence to erase, love between us, or to pass between our tongues. Thank you, and stick around for John and Zilka, who are going to tear it up in a minute. This poem I'm going to close with, you can find online at the Thrush Journal, which is a journal I love. It was in their January edition, and it's called Garden Cello. Garden Cello. Come, we swarm to the sun-warmed gold. Come we to the wood. Come we drawn to hum and hold. Come we lonely. Come we low. Come we pray to key and scale, to homilies of thrum. Come we sonata. Come we want. Come we to bowed head and scroll. Come we spiral round the blooming bud. Come we curl and thrill. Come we pulse of the bow's slow lick. Come we flow. Come we tease the hem of purfling. Come we drone and purr. Come we down long neck and waist. Come we finger. Come we peak. Come we glide vibrato. Come we itch to crest and spill. Come we tongue and blossom. Come we solo. Come we sell. Come we call and follow. Come we cavity. Come we dive. Come we honey stomach, come we nectar melody, come we alive, come we to the F-hole gates, come we to the sweet dark hive, come we crescendo, come we full and hollow, come we whole and home, come we honeycomb. Thanks everyone. Next up, John Freeman.
Oh man, Robert, that was beautiful. I love every poem you read, but that new one, Inarticulata, just floored me.
Thank you.
Yeah, a really, really nice reading. Tough to follow. I really appreciate Zilka inviting me to read. She's one of my favorite poets anywhere, but certainly one of my favorite Michigan poets. And you know, such an honor to be here tonight, Zilka. Congrats on Sparrows and Dust. It's fantastic work. I'm going to start out with a recent poem called "The Ferris Wheel," and this poem is about to come out in a journal called River Styx. So I was really excited to place this with River Styx, journal I really like. The Ferris Wheel. Through the window screen, plugged with wadded paper napkins, you could see the giant Uniroyal tire hovering above the interstate. Its steel Ferris wheel skeleton encased in black polyester resin. A relic of the '64 World's Fair, it once carried Jackie Kennedy and the Shah of Iran high over Flushing Meadows. But by the time it found its way to Allen Park, Michigan in 1966, it was out of love and its gondolas were gone. Grandma Gwen believed you should die at home. There was a perseverant beauty in it, no matter how uncomfortable or embarrassing things got. Her mother, Marie, my great-grandmother, would fight with us over gumdrops in her final years. I mean, really fight with donkey kicks and closed fist jabs in a bedroom that smelled of peppermint and piss. Grand Uncle Theron's name came from one of Actaeon's dogs. He also spent his dotage there, but all he ever mauled were canned pears and cottage cheese in hollow yellow cheeks. She referred to him as a committed old bachelor. It goes without saying all of them are gone, even Gwen, who died in that bedroom, with my mother sponging her lips and reciting the poetry of Eugene Field into the plush shell of her ear. The tragus, staid century of all we will forget. The pulsatile tinnitus of the drum just moments before the end. The whole house whooshing like a planet in its perihelion tilt. Thanks. Read a couple poems that are similarly titled. This first one's called Static Gifts for Broken Musicians, and it takes its title from a piece of art by Nick Francis Potter. And in this one, in Robert's last poem, I think he mentioned F-holes, which I was like, man, I was going to read a poem that had F-holes in them tonight. So F-holes are like if you look at a cello or an upright bass, and you see those little holes on either side of the instrument that are kind of shaped like Fs. A lot of times, if you're going to mic an instrument, that's a good place to point the microphone, is at the F-hole. But that's where all the acoustic noise comes out from the reverberations in the wood. So anyway, Static Gifts for Broken Musicians after Nick Francis Potter. Better to paint a GIF than to GIF a song, to fail at aphorism than to whittle the world to a disingenuous pith, says the long face in the Dorian progression. F-holes warped into bruised eye sockets. An SM57 mic aimed for a mess of pencil lines and paint. You've promised this won't wind up being about love, but contour hatching is as devotional as prayer or malediction if we're to believe the baffled music or the leech of Smurfy lichen. You've promised that this won't wind up being about the road, but you've taken the Kelly green froth as horseback, the shambolic equitation for an unaccompanied progression beneath which the air always seems about to kick. If you trade prevention for elegy, you'll be much more impactful, say the beer cozies with suck it suicide printed on their stomach. It's hard to argue anyone's been saved, but a precious few were named and then forgotten. Thank you. Thanks so much. And it looks like we got a lot of attendees here tonight, so make sure you buy Zilka's book. They keep putting it in the link in the chat, but it's a great book, so definitely pick it up while you're here. This next one is called Animated GIF with Ashtray and Spoon. A spoon stands in a ceramic coffee mug where the dregs of instant coffee have congealed. Each interior is an embarrassment or a bird with ponderous wings grounded, upended, and mercilessly teased. For whether with spoons or thoughts or cutty pipes, these worlds exact their cruelties. Each interior is a couch whose armrests are threadbare and hard, reminding us that our grandparents stood for nothing as they reclined into a time of pedestal ashtrays and Technicolor. History is the best approximation of a decade within a century one can supply given textual clues. In the rooms we continue to occupy, there's no fourth wall. It's other things too, history. Quotidian rock music, galoshes, the banal clamor of appliances, the moon. There's a gauze-like tissue that encapsulates an organ after toxic trauma. We're only happy when our taste buds zang against flesh, which is an imprecise way of saying docile lounging soothes in a manner that memory cannot. All we've stored in phones and clouds is all we haven't lived. Sounds fallaciously nostalgic. That time caused this time post hoc, yet irrefutable. I really love Literati Bookstore, and so it's fun to be reading, even though we can't be there in person. It's one of my favorite places to go. I live here in Dearborn, Michigan, but during normal times, I'm driving out there at least every few weeks and spending more money than I have on poetry books. So thanks to Literati for hosting us tonight. This next poem is called Half Wishes of the Cockatrice. And a cockatrice is a mythological creature that is half rooster and half snake. And one of the special powers of the cockatrice is that whatever it looks at the first thing in the morning, it incidentally kills. And so it's a very strange mythological creature that I found fascinating. This poem appeared in a recent edition of the journal Image. Half Wishes of the Cockatrice. To skim a curdling light from the blue of dawn, to slither in the furrow of a mud-churned wagon rut, to bellow above warbling and spit forth, no parched throat, no red eyes, no dust, to bless the day without looking any of them in the dying canopy dead, but knowing one bald morning they'll collapse in shrieks with sticks and feathers. Thank you. So I think I've got one more poem for you, and Zilka had asked me to sing a song. So I think I'm gonna do one more poem and then a song. I grew up in Detroit in a neighborhood called Warrendale on the very far west side of the city, kind of right near Southfield Freeway and Warren Avenue. This poem takes place there. I have a series of poems that I've been writing the last few years that are answers to questions that like people have asked me in passing or friends have asked me. You never get the questions in these poems though, you just get the poem as the answer. And so the reader kind of has to guess what the question may have been. But this one is called The Answer to Your Question is Benevolence, Trees, and Horses. Considering a height that sheers to concrete, you remember that backyard elm from your youth with its 3 forking boles, how you'd lay a 2x4 between them as a bridge and move among the upper branches on that precarious scaffolding, as if you couldn't come to peril, as if looking down at the rounded backs of garden stones, soul and providence were givens. One night, as a summer storm approached, you climbed to better hear the dry leaves sing and to feel the way the whole tree swayed to keep from breaking, reaching toward the fence line and the dark ground. Years later, you took to horses in the same oblivious way, bucked a dozen times into sand and gravel and dirt, somehow never busting a bone in any of those falls. You'd read that trees speak to each other through their roots, sharing sugars, huddling against wind, and that their peril was in being alone. They willfully give us nothing, and it might, after all, be incorrect to speak of single trees, suckers, widow makers, but copses, stands, and forests, whole subterranean networks of roots and molds. But isolated crowns and gales still resemble the head of a panicked Arabian fleeing your white-knuckled grip in your shrill voice at a dead gallop. Thanks so much. I also write songs and I play in a folk group from Detroit called the Codgers. Zilka had asked me to sing a song, so I'm gonna play you all a song I wrote called Blue Angels. Blue Angels got some local history to it. It deals a little bit with the story of Edsel Ford and the Willow Run airplane plant out in Ypsilanti. So if there are any Ypsi people out there, you'll recognize some references in this tune. You never know how sound's going to be over Zoom, so if it sounds washed out with the guitar and voice going on at the same time, I apologize. said Edsel Ford must have died of cirrhosis. He hated his father. He loved booze and horses, but he made damn sure those airplanes rolled off of the line. He made damn sure those airplanes rolled off of the line. We were hearing some music out there in Ypsi, drinking with friends, and I made you drive me down Old Waltz Road to that Willow Run airplane field, where the Blue Angels do all of their tricks in the sky. We stare out in the summertime and pretend we understand why. We pretend that we understand why. I said I won't cry for none of them rich kids whose daddies are captains of industry or captains of anything else. These days there's no captains of anything else. Then you said, as for me, I'll probably die of cirrhosis. I ain't got no father. I love booze and music, and I do not care that those airplanes ever rolled off the line. Way out here in Ypsi, where Blue Angels do tricks in the sky. Way out here in Ypsi, where Blue Angels do tricks in the sky. We stare out in the summertime and pretend we understand why. Thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate the invite, Zilka. Congratulations. And next up is the headliner and great poet, Zilka Joseph. So thanks so much for listening to me, and looking forward to your set, Zilka.
Hello, can everybody hear me now? Great. Oh my goodness, that was such a great reading, such great poems, Robert and John. Just the music, the words, the resonance, it's just beautiful. I just have no words to describe them. And thank you for singing a song for me, John. I always really love listening to you. Please hire this man for your gigs and your birthdays and bar mitzvahs and weddings. He's amazing. And buy his music and buy books by Robert and John. They're both wonderful. Please look them up. Literati, thank you so much for hosting me. and making me feel at home in Ann Arbor, where I have actually lived since 2007 when I moved here to do my MFA, and then moved back here permanently in 2009. So I have many, many friends here, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for supporting me. So, many of you take my workshops, many of you work with me on your books and manuscripts and applications. So I'm deeply grateful. I want to say a special thank you again to Robert for writing a blurb for me. Thank you to Ralph Nazareth and Anne-Marie Uman for their beautiful blurbs for my book. Thank you to ML who made this book happen. And thank you to a few other people who helped to make this book happen as well. Many of you know that it took a long time for this book to come out because there were some issues with the previous press, and that didn't work out. So I'm so happy this worked out. Thank you to Sharon Backstrom for always supporting me. And thank you to Charlie Brodsky, who is responsible for this beautiful, beautiful cover. She is a professor at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. Charlie, hi, I hope you're listening today. I think you said you're gonna be here. I want to say thank you to Chris Lord, the angel of Ann Arbor, who is such a warm and beautiful person, made me part of her family. She helped with the formatting. So many, many people rallied behind me to have this book happen. And of course, most of all, thank you to John, my husband, my companion, my partner in crime, who, without whom I think I would not be able to have done all this without his support and love and good humor. So thank you. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, but again, thank you to Literati for always being so welcoming to us. All right, I'm going to start with a poem called Negative Capability. Many of you may recognize that term, negative capability. If you remember, John Keats had written about it, and he talked about how one has to completely annihilate or erase yourself before you can put yourself into another being. And he gave an example, and he called it becoming the sparrow. So that was part of my inspiration, but also part of the idea I took from Sufism, because partly this book is inspired by the Conference of the Birds by Attar. So I have references to Journey, the travel of the soul, as we are beings that travel between different realms, almost just like a bird does. Like a bird can be part of the air, on the earth, and in the water. So my book touches on all these aspects. Negative capability. The wind has blown you here again, brought you to my deck. Oh, white-crowned sparrow, trill, trill, trill. Your striped head appeared from sunflower seed husks, moldy leaves that looked like burned remains. Pick, pick, picking, scratch, scratch, scratching, clawed feet, kick high, fast, glean gold. Stench rises from these soggy piles. Cold Michigan is just waking. Clouds thunder, so dreary, yet you return to feed, to revel in the mess of rot and dirt. To chase house sparrows and juncos, how the cardinal, the red-winged blackbird give you grief. Still, they cannot faze you. For a few days, oh winged visitor, I will claim you. You are like one who crosses back from another realm. What's left to know but the unknown? What's left but arrival, departure, arrival, departure? Oh yes, a world can fall apart in an instant. See how flesh dissolves. Look, the wind whips my brown feathers. Hungry, I scrabble, pick. What remains then for us? Open sky, sun. So night comes, stars wheel. We spiral higher, become air. Is this the bird way? Thank you. The next poem I'm going to read is actually, it's part of a much longer poem, but there were several sections that stood on their own. And this particular one I thought fit with the migration theme of this book. And I really like it because it sort of doesn't quite connect, but still it does. It sort of hangs suspended. And it's part of our process as poets of myth making. You know, there are little bits of fact. There are little things that I did hear my father talk about. He was a sailor in the merchant marine fleet, and he sailed for a large part of his life. And he's the one who gave me my love of birds and animals, and my mother too. But my dad had a great knowledge about birds, was a great birder, and I think that's what I've inherited from him. So he would talk about being out in open sea with nothing around, but then these migratory birds that were flying over, which were so tired, clouds of them would just drop onto the deck, onto the masts, onto the decks of the ship to rest because they were so exhausted. And then after a few hours, they would feel, rest up a bit, and then they would move on. But literally hundreds of them would drop onto the ship to rest. So that's where the inspiration, the image comes from for this particular poem. Even the hundreds of migrant swallows and hoopoes. Hoopoe is a bird that you find in a lot of tropical countries. It looks a lot like the northern flicker that we find here. Even the hundreds of migrant swallows and hoopoes who fell in thick clouds upon the decks of my father's lurching ship, took shelter during storms, turbulent tropical crossings, talked with him in many tongues, and told him tales of many more worlds, my parents' destiny, uncharted ways, the wild child in my mother's dreams. Now, invisible hummingbirds buzz in my ear, oceans and oceans away. We're here, they say. You'll find us. Follow the birds. It's so strange because I can't hear anyone, and I'm almost like, can I please have the volume up so I can hear you? All right, the next poem I'm going to read is called The Geese Who Came to Nest. Again, my book touches a lot on not just the lives of birds, but how humans and birds interact in many ways, and how humans affect the way, the life of a bird. The bird's lives affect us, but we also have an impact, mostly not a very good one, on some of these birds. And the geese are not very popular with a lot of people. The geese who came to nest. The geese who came to nest soon after we moved in were in their prime. They nipped at grass, tweaked half-frozen blades, fussed and shaped their home on the bank of the pond outside our window. Loudly, they honked their stories, conversing with each other, sometimes even at night. She laid 5 eggs. and we watched the nest almost as fiercely as she, wild as hawks peering from our perch inside our walls, alert for predators, interlopers, ill wishers. Through hail and storm they endured. Once a blizzard blew in, turned them into snow sculptures by the foot of a bare branched maple. Pre-dawn squawks woke us. There in the darkness, striped orange by streetlights, they darted about, flapped, confused. First light, we saw the eggs were gone. 4 weeks after, they scuffed and nuzzled the flattened grasses. 2 weeks more, the goslings would have pecked their way out into the light, skimmed the waters of the thawing pond. Bereft we were, and sick of heart, as if our very own young was stolen. Coyote, perhaps, the rumor spread. I shook my head. No, raccoons then? But where were the shattered eggshells, distressed grass? Was it a goose cleanse? My panicked heart asked. An ambush by wily lawn and pond proud humans? Should I flee or fight this twisted kingdom, its spies, its terminators? Thank you. How are we doing for time? I'm going to read I'm going to read a long poem, 2 short poems, and then my last poem. This poem is called Mama, Who Would Have Thought? It was kind of styled as a dramatic monologue in a way, where I'm speaking, I'm the only one speaking and then replying, and then you sort of imagine me walking with my mother, and it's my mother's spirit. Mama would have thought that after all these years in America, my love and I would finally have a place of our own. No, not a real house, but a condo beside a pond. Not a real pukur like the lakes in Bengal that Dad used to go fishing in, but a man-made pond with a fountain where mallards and black ducks bring their broods of supercharged little ones, and where the pied grebe pops up in spring and fall, and the trumpeter swans I love so much visit too. Then the old regulars, a belted kingfisher and a couple of blue herons fish here. Sometimes in deep summer, cormorants unfurl and sun their long wings to dry while still skimming the water. Dad would love this. Now you've come to see me, Ma. Let's go for a walk. Here, take my arm and let me guide you. Down slowly to the bank. The pavements are smooth, not like those death traps in Kolkata. You're laughing, but careful. Here the ground is uneven and the slopes sharply to the pond. You're right. That clump of grass is where the geese I told you about nested last year. The very same year we moved in. Yes, so sad. Oh, the neighbors are friendly. No, no one here is like us. Wait, let me show you the giant goldfish. How the big ones wriggle as the heron tries to swallow them. If it rains tonight, we'll surely see some shoals churning on the surface. And so funny, once when the kingfisher caught a fish that was too heavy, or maybe it was thrashing too hard, she must have dropped it. For days we wondered who left this dead goldfish on our patio. A sign from the spirit world that you live in now, we thought. And then, you won't believe this, one afternoon we see an osprey. It hovered and plunged into the pond, emerged with a goldfish the size of a kitten. And then its talons, it flashed by right past the big picture window, not 2 feet from where my love and I watched, mouths hanging open. Yes, we took a photo, but it was all so sudden. It's all blurry. I'll show you when we go back in. It happened so fast. That gorgeous bird stayed for 2 weeks. I think it'll return this fall. The red-tailed hawks and Cooper's hawks are always hunting around here. What? Are we safe? Yes, yes, and no. No, Ma. America is not safe. Sure, some policemen kill people who don't look like them. It's scary. White men march nowadays shouting threats. They put children in cages at the border. Have they no hearts? Bad things could happen to us here, too. This is our home now, Ma. You didn't want us to leave. You wept for days. Forgive us. We could not bring you here then. Now your spirit is here. Protect us. Please stay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to read this poem and then my last poem. This poem is called Our Cup Runneth Over. And this poem and the last poem in the book were also part of a longer series of poems that will probably appear in a full length sometime later, I hope. I wanted to talk a little bit about this next poem. It's called Our Cup Runneth Over. And I'm from the Ben Israeli community in India, which is the Indian Jewish community. Our roots go back to sometime 300 BC in India. And many of our customs are very Indian. In fact, that's why we are called Indian Jews. We wear saris. Many of our customs and rituals are very, very Indian. There's this one thing we do for Shabbat, which is Friday prayers. And I think this is kind of universal. We all drink a little wine or grape juice or sharbat. Sharbat is really raisins soaked overnight in water and then boiled, and then the lovely juice is strained and it's cooled, and then we drink it in these little glasses. But how we begin to drink it, we first pour it into a cup so that the cup overflows into the saucer. So, and that's a symbol of abundance and thanks. So really, it's a beautiful little ritual. I haven't done it for a long time, but I do my Shabbat Friday light and say a small prayer. Our cup runneth over. Sometimes on Fridays you return. We set the table, light candles, say Shabbat Shalom, hug and kiss. Fill tiny cups with raisin sharbat till the burgundy liquid spills into the saucers. We drink. The cool sweetness slakes our thirst. And later we sip fine scotch together. We argue and laugh loudly, just like we used to. Raise our voices, raise our glasses, roar, L'chaim. Thank you. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Literati. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, John. Just having you here makes me feel great. And I can see your cat, Robert. That's beautiful. I wish we could all be in one room together with our guitars and animals and friends together. So we will pretend that we can see you all. The last poem I'm going to read for you is the title poem, Sparrows and Dust. And I want to dedicate this to so many people. Of course, my parents, and of course the book is also dedicated to John, but I also want to do it in remembrance of all the lives we've lost to COVID and to the terrible, terrible suffering that's happening in India at the moment. May that suffering be alleviated and may people find peace. And I don't know how it's this long it's going to last. I think it's going to get a little worse, but perhaps all of us can just pray, meditate, and hope for that suffering to ease. And that's all we can. I hope we all in solidarity send our wish thoughts to them as I read this poem, Sparrows and Dust. There's an epigraph from the great poet Rethke, a great Michigan poet, and I consider myself to be a Michigan poet. This is home for me, so I thank you all for all of you who have embraced me, encouraged me, and lifted me. Thank you. Sparrows and Dust. I believe in the sparrow happy on gravel, from Rethke's Praise to the End. The first time I noticed a cloud of dust rise from the playground, I squinted my 6-year-old eyes and saw sparrows flailing about in gravelly dirt. My mother told me, look, they're having their daily dust bath. See how well they wash themselves. Such a cleansing, dust with dust, letting what's broken, biting, or dead flake off. I have always loved how sparrows, even when they drove us mad with their noisy fights and ferocious nesting inside our second floor Kolkata flat, raining dirt, twigs, eggs, and just born chicks on us when rival pairs fought for territory on tops of cupboards, chinks and clutter and junk stored everywhere. Our house was heaven and a kind of hell. Sometimes, when streaking in from the hot sun, one would fly into the fan's spinning blades. With a soft gasp, it would die at my feet. Sometimes, how it struggled, poor thing. I would cradle its head as blood seeped into my hand, give it water, whisper comfort. Often, when I shut its eyelids, a vision of my own feathered body lying lifeless below would flash by. I hovered above, as if I have been somewhere else. Weeping, I willed them, come back from the dead. Failed shaman, I never saved anyone or anything. My parents, the animals and birds we loved, the locked flat falling to ruin. Now, years later, in short Michigan summers, I look for flusters of dust, feel a warm thrill in my aching bones when I see these birds squirm in soil, then spring from a cloud, fluffing, cheeping, cleansed, whole. I think of the little-known tale I read about the precocious 5-year-old trickster Jesus, who played by the river one Shabbat evening, and who shaped 12 sparrows from wet clay. When his father scolded that he had violated the holy day, he clapped, shouting to the birds, "Remember me, you who are now alive." And the living sparrows rose and flew away. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow,
Thank you.
Sorry if I interrupted you just there. Thank you, Zilka, for sharing such beautiful, beautiful work. And thank you, Robert, and thank you, John, for your reading as well and for the song. We do have one question. We have a couple comments and one question in the Q&A. I'm not sure if you guys are interested in sticking around for a little bit more, just for,
sure.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
We've got a question from Jack. He says, "Wonderful, Zilka. Thank you for years. How has your work evolved?"
Can you read that again? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Read it again, Rose.
Yeah. It says, "Wonderful, Zilka. Thank you for years. How has your work evolved?"
All right. You know what? It's a process that I don't really think about so much. It's just as I've grown and I've absorbed more and more of my life around me and memories and the things that have happened, they sort of come together in various ways and then express themselves in my poems. And I think also what happens is I may have written many different kinds of poems about many different subjects with very different tones. Some have persona, some have, maybe a villanelle with, something on a subject. But I think what happens when we put a book together is we are often drawing from poems that work towards a theme. So I think where I have evolved in that sense and my writing has grown is that I think I've become better at working with these themes and putting ideas together in a more sophisticated way, if I may say so. And of course, our writing has, we cannot not grow and not evolve. So the more I'm immersed in contemporary American writing, world literature, writing in India, writing, poets everywhere that I kind of pull from and am inspired by. And poets like Robert and John and all our wonderful Michigan poets and, my professors at University of Michigan, Laura Kosicki, Lorna Goodison, Linda Gregerson, who has played a very important part in my life. So I think we just absorb, and then we are the vessels of this music. So I'm not sure I quite answered that question, but for me, it's not really a very conscious process. It happens. And then when it's on the page, then it becomes a much more conscious process of editing and finishing and shining it up. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you answered that very eloquently. I have to say, for all three of you, it seems that you're all very influenced by the exterior kind of natural world. And for me to be a listener of that makes me want to go outside on a walk and kind of just, look at the birds and look at the dirt and look at everything. So thank you for letting, this be an experience for all of us, letting us be, kind of washed over by your words, all three of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're about 10 minutes past the hour, so I think it's time for us to wrap up. I'm not sure if any of you had any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to share.
I just want to say thank you to Zilkha for her amazing reading. The book is incredible. I remember it was about 20 years ago, first hearing Zilkha read, and it was in one of those tents at a literary festival in Detroit, and literally stopped in my tracks. I didn't know who she was. I just heard her beautiful voice. I'll never forget it. And her poems are every bit as good now or better than they were then. And thank you, Zilkha. What a joy. And I treasure our friendship. And John, you blew me away. Thanks for your amazing work too. Thanks for everybody for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you, Robert and John, for being my friends and wonderful poets. Bye. Thank you, Rose. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Rose. Take care.